I'm someone that has to believe in the technology, the solution, or the service that I'm representing. So I can stand proudly in front of my customers and say, look, I'm showing up and I'm here because I'm really about to add a ton of value to you. I couldn't look myself in the mirror and pitch this solution with that feeling and with that confidence.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tales from the Field podcast. I have sales aficionado, lovely Jem, for just saying, yes, I'd love to have this conversation with you out loud. Sorry, it's Friday and I'm going to get tongue-tied. I have Alleyne. How was that, Alex? Did I mess up your last name? I wanted to make it sound elegant.
Absolutely. As I say, you gave it a little bit of je ne sais quoi, as they say, and really excited to be on with you, Amy, and I'll try and keep the accent flowing as best I can.
I love it. You know what? This is so good. It's making me smile big on a Friday morning. For those of you that are not familiar with you, Alex Alleyne, je ne sais quoi.
Love it.
Tell us about you. What do you do? What are you doing in sales? Give us a little intro.
Absolutely. So I've been in the SaaS sales game for just over 10 years now, done everything from being in BD roles to mid-market roles to enterprise. And today I find myself at a cybersecurity hyper-growth company called Lacework, growing at lightning pace, having a ton of fun while doing that. But before that, I was also at Amazon Web Services and Twilio. And broader than that, as Amy's already said, 2-time LinkedIn top voice. So do my best to share successes, failures, lessons, and learning all on the wonderful LinkedIn platform. Alex
has wonderful wisdom. So if you're not following him, ladies and gentlemen, please do, because he's got a lot to say. And after 10 years of being with brands like that and in sales, I feel like you've got a lot to say. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. You're in sales. You've been in the game 10 years. You've been with all sorts of lovely different brands that probably took you to different nooks and crannies of your sales career. It's a journey, and yours truly included. We have the highest of the highs, and when we're winning and doing all the right things, it's the best feeling ever. And then some of those lows can be really difficult, especially when we stumble, we fall, we get in the way of ourselves. So as you think back, and I just imagine you thinking back in the British accent in your mind. So as you think back and you kind of cringe a little bit because you're like, oh, I did it to myself. What was that? Let's break it down out loud.
Absolutely. Yeah, so several years back now, Amy, I'd had a great run at a few companies, riding really high, earning great money. And I thought, man, this sales thing is absolutely for me. I then had an opportunity come up, which was a £25,000 increase on my basic salary, which at the time was massive for me, at that stage and at that age. And I just grabbed it with two hands, right? And I had absolutely no criteria for the move. I barely did any homework at all on the company. I went complete tunnel vision that I'm about to get £25,000 more on my base. The OTE was ×2. And I'm thinking it felt like I was going to be an overnight millionaire in my own mind at that time. So I took the role, and I left the role in less than 3 months because for, 20 other reasons, it was absolutely the wrong move to make. But I got completely blinkered by those pound signs at the time. So I'll pause there because that's what it is in a nutshell.
Wait, so what does blinkered mean? So I'm learning something new. Is this a term that you Brits use for when you get bamboozled? Like, what does blinkered mean?
Yeah, so it almost means tunnel visioned, if that's maybe a more widely known term, where I got completely focused and obsessed with the money, and it was at the detriment of thinking of anything but that, in essence.
So you're not alone, Alex. I done the same thing. And for anybody listening, and you probably see this, Alex, because we were supportive of each other's content, so we see each other's stuff. I talk about the power of a scorecard all the time. And the reason why I do that is because of my own mistake. So I'm horrible with math. I know that I think the pound is more in value than the US dollar. So 25,000 pounds, that's going to be at least or more than $25,000 in a base. That's a nice bump. I had the same thing, more than that I got super seduced by. And when you have this money thrown at you, you start spending it in your mind. You're like, I can do this. I can do that. This is going to be so great. And we start telling ourselves stories of like what we think it is versus doing the good work to confirm or deny what it isn't. Yes. And like you, I don't know about you, but on day one for me, I walked in, I saw some things. This isn't my fail, but I just want to let you know that you're not alone. And I called my husband crying. And I vowed to myself that I would never do this again to myself. And how could I do that? And that's where the scorecard was born. So for you, Alex, you peace out within 3 months, my friend. Like you're like, I'm out of here. When did you know that you got, so we call it, or I call it, the shiny object syndrome. You got super seduced by that shiny object that was a 2 times more than your OTE, extra in your base salary, and all the other things that came along with it that got you really excited. When did you know that you had taken a left turn? Yeah, it's a great question. With this particular organization, that the HQ wasn't actually here in England. So within my first week of onboarding, I got flown out to do, the onboarding. And at those times, we could still do that in person versus how things have changed now. And so it was almost on that first day, actually, Amy, that I got there and we went through the day and I started to really understand and get embedded in the company culture, the vision, start to understand the technology. And very quickly, I started feeling those red flags going off in my head. The biggest thing that started coming to mind was just having a real lack of belief in the technology itself and the problem that it solved and the size of the market. And I hadn't done this research beforehand, right? And so I was almost learning this as I got in. And very quickly, I found myself in this, massive dilemma because I was thinking, this isn't right, but look at my salary now. But this isn't right, but look at my salary now. And I really struggled, right? Because in a way, I started to then, as you kind of mentioned, forward think my mind about what my lifestyle, how that would change. I started making arrangements for, getting a new apartment. And so it became quite difficult at that stage, having a bit of naivety with my age at that time to think, should I stick through this or do I, make sure I win the marathon and not just the sprint? So what pushed you to say, I'm not going to stick with this in 3 months? Because I want to break into this a little bit further, and I appreciate you being open to doing it because you're not alone. I went through it too. This happens a whole lot. We have salespeople here in the US. I don't know what the UK numbers are, but we churn almost 3 times more than any other field. And yet in tech, it's one of the top roles that companies are hiring for. And there's this major disconnect between supply and demand, supporting employees, not supporting employees, flawed hiring process, post-hiring process. And I find that there's culpability on both sides of the table, right? These are mutual decisions between an employer and between an employee. In my opinion, I think it starts and stops in that hiring process of the first crack in the foundation. So you said you got super seduced by the dollar signs or the pound signs, whatever the signs are, whatever currency we're talking about. Yep. And you realize you fly out for onboarding. You're like, I'm not feeling this. What were the things that stood out to you where you were like, whoa, not for me. I don't care how much money they're going to send my way. This isn't my jam. What were some of those things? And did you see any of those things in the interview process and you decided to turn a blind eye because you were real excited about the money? Let's dig into that because we've all been there. Yes, no, absolutely. I think the main thing that really struck me and kind of hit me like a train, and I also learned a lot about myself in this moment, was that I didn't believe in the technology and the problem that it solved for. And so to be a little bit more specific there, the technology was okay, right? There was a lot of things I started to see and hear about, customer complaints, it not really solving against the challenges that it was supposed to solve for. Wasn't very innovative, wasn't really moving the needle in any way. And so what really hit me at that time was I'm someone that has to believe in the technology, the solution, or the service that I'm representing. I've got to wholeheartedly be able to get behind this so I can stand proudly in front of my customers and say,
look, I'm showing up and I'm here because I'm really about to add a ton of value to you, or I'm about to solve so many challenges for you, right, that you've absolutely got to listen to what I've got to say. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't look myself in the mirror and pitch this solution with that feeling and with that confidence. And so it got to a point where I said, even if someone paid me 2 or 3 or 4 times, even what I'm on with this jump, would that change how I feel? And I came to realize it wouldn't. So then it became a point of, actually, this isn't about the money. I need to be in an environment where that belief system, that energy, that enthusiasm is absolutely there, and focus on my performance, and the money will come, right? And, without trying to go off on a tangent.
Can you please say that 3,000 more times for anybody listening, for those of you in the way back having a hard time of hearing? Alex, one more time, that lesson, that last little bit.
Absolutely.
That is like, there's anything else that you're going to say, which I'm sure is going to be amazing, but that thing, please say that loud, proud, and repeat it one more time. But for everybody listening, please rewind, listen like 1,000 times, because I cannot underscore that point enough. Please, one more time, Alex. That was amazing.
Focus on the performance and the money will come.
I mean, can you drop your mic? I mean, stop it. Yes. Carry on. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but that just struck me in the most glorious of ways. So thank you.
No, I'm really pleased to hear that. I think the only other point I was going to add to this, Amy, is that it also took me back to university, which I think you guys call college over there in the States.
I know what that means, Alex.
Sure. I'm just making sure. Tomatoes. I
love it.
Back then, I, as some people would know, also had a full scholarship studying corporate law. And I dropped out after 8 months because I had no passion for it. But the path that was mapped out for me was, hey, Alex, becoming a lawyer, that's the way to the big bucks. That's how you go about life. This sales thing, what is that, right? That's not going to get you to some of the outcomes of the things that you want to achieve in life. But I knew back then, I said, look, I'm chasing what I'm passionate about, what I love doing, what I feel like I want to do for my career. And, we still got a long way to go, but let's just say it has absolutely driven a lot of the outcomes that I've wanted to get from life. I also went back and got a first-class degree in sales management as well. So I was able to kind of fire on both cylinders. And I really should have taken that lesson into this career decision. But again, it's lifelong lessons and learning, isn't it?
It is. And I feel like you would make Simon Sinek very, very proud. You knew what you wanted to do and why you wanted to do it, and you chased after it, even though, a law degree that's very responsible, that's very illustrious, that has nice money attached to it. And you broke away from something that people expected of you. And that can be really hard to do when you show up for yourself, to take care of yourself, because you're very clear on what's important to you and why it's important to you. Regardless of whether you would have practiced law or not, or sales or not, this is a roller coaster ride. And it's especially when I think about my lawyer friends, or I think about my sales career, there isn't really an off switch. Like you're thinking about things and you're involved in things, and it's not traditional 9 to 5. And sometimes your customer needs to talk to you on a Sunday because that's what works for them, and you make it work. And if you don't have that fire in your belly, as we say over here, Alex, I don't know if that's a British term. And I'm not going to fake a British accent. I will horrify everybody listening and you. I was tempted and I stopped myself. But, that is key. And it's people like you that should absolutely be in this industry that give it a good name. And I'm here for that.
That means a ton.
Well, I just call it as I see it. I mean, I'm a direct kind of gal. This podcast is no exception to that rule. Let's be real. So that being said, I want to go back in time again. So that this isn't going to map back, and there is so much pressure that we put on ourselves of what is it going to look like on paper? Am I going to be a job hopper? Do I stick it out? And you're asking yourself these questions. What were you doing in that 3-month time to prepare yourself to leave? What were some of the things that you were doing to recover?
Well, I think the first thing to say is I I tried to convince myself, I guess, for quite some time as to why I even got to 3 months. I got home and I tried to give it a chance, and I said, come on, Alex, maybe see it through a different lens. Once I concluded that this wasn't going to be the right thing, the next step was to say, okay, why did I make the decision in the first place? What have I learned, and what could and should I have done differently? Right. And so I took the time to really break out answers to all of those questions. And fundamentally, one of the probably more simple aspects that I just completely missed probably ties a little bit into your scorecard, Amy, which is I had no criteria, right? I had nothing to let me know why I'm going to make this move. And does this move in some way contribute to the career aspirations that I have? Right. And as I kind of look forward, if I look at some of the areas that are now really important to me, it's, market leading or innovative technology within a space that has a huge market opportunity, leadership with a proven track record and, demonstrated success to help with my growth and progression, and the opportunity based on where the company's going to continue to grow, to elevate, to help others, and leave a legacy is ultimately the way that I like to frame that. So those are kind of just some of the things that I think about. And so as I then moved forward, I started to, I guess, create my own scorecard in a way with criteria against those types of areas. And then I was able to score each company against those things. And all of the decisions I've made since then, depending on your definition of good career decision making, we look at Twilio, for example. I joined when they were 500 people. They're a public company, 7,500 today. AWS, the most successful cloud computing company on the planet. And then, Lacework, 300% year-on-year growth and going on to do some amazing things. So that new approach has really put me in a position where I'd like to say great decisions have been made since.
Funny how when you get very clear on what's important to you, like attracts like. And when you're confused, everything else is confusing. When you're clear, everything else becomes a lot more understandable. And it's funny, you're just delighting me, Alex. Thank you. I love this conversation because what you just described, so I collect data from all the conversations that we have with people that we recruit. And in sales, this could be enterprise sales, this could be executive sales leadership. We just focus on executive sales leadership in CS now, but for a long time we focused on enterprise sales roles. There were 3 common themes, and they still materialize in every conversation. In the top 3, it's leadership, because it starts from the top down. Then it's product market fit. So you're talking about innovative, it's solving a problem, it's doing things that you can't scale or grow something that you don't have. So there's that. And then opportunity. What's your opportunity to grow and thrive? And you mentioned all of those things. Notice, ladies and gentlemen, how Alex didn't say a darn word about the money, because when those things are clicking, that's how you get to 300% growth of where he is today. That's how you grow and thrive in your career. The money will follow. Alex, you're like my spirit animal. I'm here for this. Yes. I mean, like literally, I just want to grab you from the UK and clone you and take you along with me every day to talk about this, because it is so important. So you start doing the work on becoming very clear. For anybody listening, if you want this, hit me up. I've got a scorecard that walks you through how to become clear. So you get clear and you're like, okay. And by the way, I've looked at your background. You're not a job hopper. You did it. It happened. You survived. You thrived. There's a difference when you're the pattern versus you're solving for a mistake. Big, big difference. And there's big differences between job and career moves. Not my episode. This is yours. So you got me all fired up, Alex, on a Friday. What?
I love it.
So for the folks listening, when you think back on that painful time, because when you're living that, 3 months seems like a second in time, every day in a bad gig where you're regretful feels like a million years every single day. So my heart goes out to you and anybody else that's going through this. Be like Alex in terms of how you recover from it. Let me ask you this. Looking back, what do you do today to help you avoid ever going through that again? What's your method to your madness? Besides clarity, besides your own version of a scorecard, What do you do today?
Yeah, I think a big part of one of my mantras anyway now is fail fast. And I know that sometimes is a controversial statement, but really what I find is trying to get overly emotionally attached to certain scenarios doesn't always serve you well. And I think as I look back on that situation, what it really needed was some objectivity from me to be able to look at it, stare at it and say, what action do I need to take? What's going to make most sense here without me getting too drawn left or right? Because emotively, the money was quite hard to walk away from, right? As I say, I was, living in my own place. I had bills, responsibilities. It wasn't easy to walk away. But in a way, I got comfortable with this concept of fail fast, learn, pivot, and move forward. And so as I've kind of matured my career and got further forward, I've become very comfortable with accepting that life isn't perfect, careers aren't perfect, deals aren't perfect, things happen, right? But it's about how you can take it, learn, adjust, and pivot. And so I think my ability now to adapt and interpret situations and then quickly adjust left or right has really grown. And I'd really advise anyone else to become quite intentional about developing your ability to adapt to situations.
Alex, you are my spirit animal. Yes, I'm here for this. This is amazing. For anybody that is listening to this, truly, these are the things that make somebody a top performer for the long haul. The force is strong in you. You've been in it for 10 years. I'll see you in 20 when you're retiring on Necker Island like Sir Richard Branson. I am here for it, Alex. So for anybody that is listening, I hope you took a lot of notes because there are so many lessons here. Alex, as we round things out, what is the one, maybe two things that you would want anybody listening to take away from what we've discussed of lessons that you've learned from that sort of icky situation, but that icky situation was a springboard for you because of what you did to recover? Yes. Be like Alex. So what are the maybe one, two things that you want anybody listening to take away here?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, have criteria. Go and get Amy's score sheet. Put yourself in a position where you can make objective decisions about your career. And then the second main thing goes back to the mantra we've said a couple of times. Prioritize your performance. The money will come. And then, I'll just round that off by saying that the last bit I said, become an adaptation machine. So you said 2, but I've given you 3.
Well, I'm here for that. But wait, there's more. It's like a infomercial, but in the loveliest way. But wait, there's more from Alex.
Yes.
Alex, gosh, thank you so much. This really, truly is the essence of what this show is all about. Because guess what? We all make mistakes. It's called being a human. It's not okay when you keep doing the same thing and you want something different. And it's not okay when you stumble so hard and you can't pick yourself back up. And I think we're both here to show you can do that. It can be painful and you can come out of it better than you were before. And you've done that. And I am thrilled that I get a front row seat to watch you grow and thrive. Thank you, truly. For anybody listening, I hope that this was helpful because this was a masterclass. So Alex, I just want to go over to the UK and snuggle up and talk shop. I just think the world of you. Thank you so much. This was amazing. Until next time, this was Tales from the Field.
Thanks so much, guys.
You've been in sales. I've been in sales. And in sales, it's a journey where we all have stumbled. And it is in these moments where we grow the most. So for anybody listening, I hope that this was helpful. This has been a Sales Feed production. If you're not familiar with all of the fun things that they have up their sleeve, check out salesfeedmedia.com.